Hello, students. So thank you very much for joining the session. Students, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if all the things are fine from your end? The voice, the screen, and also the clarity, that we can begin the classes. I am assuming everything is clear. So students, as I told you, before we go into the technical discussion, I initially wanted everyone to be very strong with their writing performance. Because at the end of the day, students, in the examination, you are going to write the answer. And you need to have that skills in order to manage 45 minutes time and to write the answers as you wanted. Now, students, if you observe this question, let's start going through this. So you have received an email from Elham. So in our case study, who is Elham? That is the first question I am asking. So I'll just quickly take you to our organization structure. You need to be aware that Elham Andrew Dree is our operational director in this case. So students, he has sent you to the finance manager an email, a lease of our hotel, and the date is also mentioned. So effectively, this is focusing on the lease of our hotel. So let's start working on the application. Hi, I believed you have received the mail. In the recent board meeting, we are planning to lease some of our hotels since the management thinks that we are having a very high overheads, which is affecting our profits as well. I have sent you the detailed explanation in the reference material. So students here, they are effectively concerned about the overhead cost that is incurred in our hotel. So if you observe here, I need you to provide the details on the following. Firstly, the challenges that may arise from identifying and quantifying cash flows to determine the NPV. And do we need to consider any non-financial consideration of this proposal? So it is a 60% weightage, and students, it has two subcomponents. Now, the first subcomponent is the challenges that we may find it when identifying and quantifying the cash flow to determine the NPV. And do we need to consider any non-financial consideration? That is one more factor, if I'm not mistaken, non-financial consideration. Secondly, the app development cost accounting treatment. App development cost accounting treatment. Please, can you provide a detailed discussion on the challenges that are associated with? Now, if you observe the students, 60%, and here it is 40%. So if I'm not mistaken, students, let's go through the reference material and then let's come back to this. If you observe this, the reference material, the hotel ownership we have on 314 hotels are generally because we have excess cash in the past since we were the first mover in Westland for overseas tour. Now, students, if you observe the case study, it is very clear that we were the first mover in Westland for overseas tour. Now, I think there are many technological developments, and currently we need to make sure that we also go with the trends in the market. Therefore, the management has decided to lease around 40 hotels for a period of 4 years. Now, of the 314, the management is going to lease out 40 hotels for a period of how many years? 4 years. And to use the proceeds from the lease to focus on digital customer services. And we are planning to develop a mobile app as well. Therefore, the speed and the communication will become faster as well. So students, if you observe this very carefully, These are the key points they have given. The first point here they are mentioning is lease 40 hotels since it is generally having major overhead. That is one point the management is concerned about. The second one is the lease of hotels will mitigate the risk of off-peak season less demand. That is also one of their concerns. Because students, there are chances that during the off-peak season, there will be less demand also for our hotels. But since we own this hotel, we need to effectively pay the cost to them as well. The main objective to lease the hotel are to focus on customer service. The operation management is like supply chain will reduce and we can focus on strategy formulation as well. The lease is expected for a period of 4 years. The proceeds from the lease will be used to fund the development of mobile app. So they will use the proceeds from the lease to fund the development of what students? Mobile application. So students, these are the main points that is there in the case study. So if I'm not mistaken, as I already told you, when you go to the examination, always make sure you write a sentence called, what did I understand? What did I understand? That is very, very crucial. And this, for me, I always say translation. That means students, although we are having the classes in English, the exams are in English, the questions are also in English. The translation is how I translate that English to myself. Once again, I'm repeating students, translation is the process, how I translate the knowledge to myself. Now students, what did I understand? Lease out 40 hotels. Correct? Lease out 40 hotels. Focus on app development. Correct, no students? App development. App development. Then students, customer service, if I'm not mistaken. Then students, after app development, customer service, strategy development. And the other one, reduce the overhead cost during off-peak season. And the final one, if I'm not mistaken, is reduce the other areas like supply chain management. So students, did you observe I summarized the entire understanding of the data into a small points? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? If you understood this, you must do this in the exam. A small statement called, what did I understand? Again, I'm repeating students, when you go to the examination, please try to make sure to write down a sentence as, what did I, what students, understand? Students, now I'm going to go for the answer planning. Because students, everyone is very good in answer planning. Now, answer planning is very simple because students, one major reason why students find this paper a little tough is they effectively miss the major points, if I'm not mistaken. So let's come to the answer planning. So part A, it is 60%. So 60% means in simple language, it will be around 15 marks in total. And the part B is 40%, which effectively will be 40 marks in total. So students, now I'm just going back and I'm just going through the question. Challenges that may arise from identifying and quantifying cash flow to determine the NPV. So that is one section. So I'll write down here, challenges in identifying and quantifying cash flows for the NPV, for the NPV calculation. That is one thing. And in the same question, another point of view for you all, if I'm not mistaken, students, just to make sure. Consideration of non-financial factors. So I'll write down here, consideration of non-financial factors. Consideration of non-financial factors. This is also one more point. Now, students, the part B, it's an accounting question. Part B is effectively an accounting question. App development cost accounting treatment. Please, can you provide a detailed discussion and the challenges associated with? So I'll write down here, accounting treatment for the app development, challenges associated with. So students, now if you observe, a student who is very technically strong can attempt the part B first. But if you observe, if you see the co-activity A, although this is an I can statement of co-activity A, it's a challenge of the I can statement. They are not asking you to calculate the ratio or calculate the cash flow. They are asking you that in order to get this cash flow, what are the biggest challenges we will face? Practical question. Now, students, in reality, we are not using manual accounting anymore. Everything is computerized and Excel based only. But in the practical form, the biggest challenge we have is data collection. And here, the question arises in the challenges associated with quantifying and identifying the cash flow for this calculation. And the other one is consideration of non-financial factors. So we have to think about the non-financial factors also. Now, students, I believe you have understood how these things work. Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are clear with this? Can I quickly get a confirmation from the chat box if you are clear with this? Because we have to decide on what we have to write. And here comes the common sense that is involved. Now, students, identifying the challenges and quantifying cash flow for the NPV calculation. Now, students, in simple language, what I can do is not a big difficult thing. We can start writing it on a step-by-step basis, if I'm not mistaken. Students, if you observe 40 hotels they have given. Now, students, do we have hotel in Westland or overseas? We have hotels in overseas. So the biggest challenge what we will be facing is understanding the occupancy rate in the hotels during the year and off-peak season. Students, is that very important challenge? Yes or no? Because occupancy rate is very, very critical. That is a very big challenge in identifying the cash flow. Now, the second one, students, if I am not mistaken, is the challenges associated with the foreign currency. Challenges associated with what, students? Foreign currency rates. Now, students, if you observe, we may collect the cash from our thing, but if you observe, students, our hotels are in overseas. So if you see, every overseas countries will have their foreign currency rates. Correct, no, students? Yes or no? Different foreign currency rates will be there in different overseas countries. So this will be a biggest challenge in identifying and quantifying the cash flow. Students, if anyone thought about foreign currency rates, can I get a Y in the chat box? If didn't you think, you put N in the chat box. How many of you all were able to guess this foreign currency rate, students? If anyone didn't get it, can you please put N in the chat box? If you are able to identify that properly, excellent, Mr. Tahir, very good, very good. Thanks, Mr. Jose. Other students, please make sure you just give your comments, because students, if you observe, this thinking level is very important, because on the examination date, you are considered as a senior finance manager. So remember that very, very well. So that is one more factor to be considered at the moment. And the other one, if I'm not mistaken, is another challenge associated with this is the savings of overheads in each hotels. That is also one biggest challenge, the savings of overheads in each hotels, because I don't think every hotel will have the same overheads, if I'm not mistaken. Different hotels will have different types of cost structure. So that will be also one bigger challenge, if I'm not mistaken. So students, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are able to understand this question properly? Shall I get that clearly? Because that is done at the moment. That is done at the moment. Can I get a Y in the chat box, students? If you are okay with this, students, can I move forward with the non-financial factors to be considered? Can I move forward with that, students? You have unlimited type of answers. You can write it, but just make sure that you are writing the answers which are very specific to the situation. So non-financial factors, 40 hotels, but what about the regions? What about the region? Is that very attractive location? Students, can you remember that certain regions are very attractive? Correct now, students? Yes or no? So that is also one more factor. Can I get a confirmation from your students? The region means location. Location is very, very important non-financial factor. Thank you. And then students, if I'm not mistaken, after the location, I'm going to focus on one more area to make your answers even very, very transparent, very, very clear also. So can I continue with another sentence so that it will be very easier for you all to understand the application of that? The other one is, students, after non-financial factors, 40 hotels, but the region is very attractive location. And the other one, students, if I'm not mistaken, quality of the hotels after the lease, because we do not know how will they maintain the quality of the hotel after lease. And the other one is, can we send our tourists to this hotel? That is another question. Now, these hotels, what we have leased out for another party, we have to ensure that can we also send our tourists to their hotels in case if we need them. So that is also one non-financial factor to be considered also, if I am not mistaken, because it's very, very important. And the other non-financial factor that we have to consider at the moment is 4 years period. 4 years period. Does the lessor, does the lessee has to provide any deposits? So that is also one more thing, students, because in case there is damages, anything, we will be getting back the hotel. So we have to ensure that factor also. So students, did you understand the points that has been mentioned in the answer plan, students? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? I told you there is a method of writing for 10%, you can do it. Economics and the political stability in different region, will that be the same? Now that's a good point. Actually, it is correct. I can agree with you, but you have to ensure that you connect it specifically to the question. Because in that case, like economic and political stability, like legal rules and regulation plays a clear role. Because in most of the countries, they support their nationals. So in that case, you are correct. How can we consider this lease? No, this is not a finance lease or operating lease. This is a lease. Actually, Now we don't have something called operation lease or finance. It is a lease. Lease means anything that you give the rights to use. Now you can check the video. I have uploaded a video on lease. You can check that. Now it means right of the use. So it's not a finance lease. Now finance lease means ownership will get transferred. Example, you have a car, you are leasing under the financial lease, the ownership will get transferred. So that is the point of view there. So students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? I'm going to continue with the answer for the part B also. So if you observe students, this is done. This is done successfully. This is done successfully without any issues. So I'm going to come to the next one, part B. Now, in this case, accounting treatment. So I have to make sure IAS 38. There is a standard called intangible asset. Intangible asset needs to be considered. In that, students, we have something called reliable measurement. We have something called what, students? Reliable what, students? Measurement. Reliable measurement means whether we have the cost everything to be measured reliably. And then, students, estimated useful life. And students, we can also consider other factors like software upgrades, because software upgrades are very, very important because students, if you specifically observe these apps needs to be upgraded on time and all these costs needs to be managed properly. So if you observe students in the reliable measurement, we can have the cost measurement. And then students, if you observe, there are something called app maintenance cost. Because generally students, they will give you app maintenance cost also. So in that case, we can also observe that also. So students, are you clear with this point of view? Because we are going to start writing the answer. So can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are clear with this? Now, students, understand it very, very well. The part B is a technical jargon question. But the part A, majority can pass, provided that you are writing whatever that you are eligible to write. So now, students, I am going to start working with the answer so that the entire class students will understand it properly. So I'm going to start writing the answer and I understood the question well. So the answer will be generally easier for me to write down. So students, now I will write down here email. I'll just write down a format. It's a reply to him from finance manager. I'll just make sure that is also done. Okay, to, if I'm not mistaken, we already know it is Elham to subject response to the lease proposal and the date. I'm responding to the same date, 20th April 2023. So initially I will write down the introduction. Thank you very much for the mail. I have responded on the following. That is the challenges associated with determining the cash flow for the lease proposal with the non-financial factors to be considered and also I have presented a separate section on the accounting treatment for the mobile app. Students, can I get a confirmation if you're okay with this? This is just for a formality. Can I get a confirmation from your students if you're fine with that? This is just a formality. And students, one more thing, if you are in a laptop, you must also try to, like you are on mute, so you can type with me and see the speed because I dictate also, so you can observe the speed as well. So I'll write down here the challenges associated with determining the cash flow are, so I'll write down explanatory wise. Since we are operating in hotel sector, the biggest challenge will be on understanding the revenue share allocated to the hotel accommodation. Since we generally consider the full package revenue overall from the customers. Students, this is a very, very important sentence for y'all. You observe it very well. Now, in the case study, it is clearly mentioned that when we are collecting money, if you observe students, when we are collecting money from the people, we are effectively taking the full amount. And we are not aware, and the customer is also not aware about the breakdown. So we have taken the full money and we are recording as sales. And can you remember these hotels are considered as a cost center? So the biggest issue is revenue is not allocated. So I'll write down here, since hotels are considered as cost centers, the revenues are not allocated. Correct no students if I'm not mistaken. Therefore, the company needs to ensure to analyze the occupancy rate. Analyze what rate, students? Occupancy rates. Analyze occupancy rates. Analyze occupancy rate. Analyze occupancy rates. It can be based on the annual occupancy and subdivided into peak season and off-peak season. Since the objective of the lease is to mitigate the revenue lost during off-peak season, this data is very critical to estimate the cash flow. And it is generally challenging as well to collect this data immediately. Challenging as well to collect this data immediately. Students, I believe everyone got this explanation clearly. Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are able to understand that sentencing, students? That is very, very, very critical. Very, very, very critical. How I was analyzing the situation like a finance manager, and I'm telling you, these are very challenging also. And I told them the weakness also, that we are currently operating these hotels as cost centers. So the biggest challenge that we are having is we are not able to get the revenue breakdown properly. Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students, if you are clear with these explanatory factors that I have mentioned here? Can I quickly get a Y in the chat box, students? Because this is what the examiner effectively wants from the students. I believe this is very clear for you all. So students, the next one is another issue, if I'm not mistaken. I'll write down the next one. Another factor that needs to be considered is the effects in the changes in the foreign currency translation. Since all the 40 hotels are located overseas, where the distance can be 5 hours from Westland. Very practical way of writing. Therefore, the cash flow arising from the lease will have a translation factor to be considered. And since the lease payments are made on an annual basis, there are chances that the exchange rate volatility can affect the cash flow. Therefore, some allowances are important to make sure the cash flows are reflected in W dollars, which is the home currency. Full stop. Now, students, the next one, just to make sure, the savings of overheads in each hotel. So that is one more factor. Since every hotels may have their unique form of presence. Example, the food offered, the entertainment events, the quality of may also vary from different hotels based on the local country standard. Based on the local country standard. Therefore, the biggest challenge in the cash flow identification will be the application where the company will have to determine the cost savings on each hotels separately, which is possible, but it may take some time for reliable estimates. Students, these are the challenges. So can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students, if you are fine with this? But a student will get a provision in the exam. That means a student will pass in the exam if he only mention this cost center. And also students, these are the key things that needs to be there. That is full revenue package. Can you remember, students? It is full revenue packages. Now that is very finance manager specific area, full revenue package. So students, I believe everyone has got this understanding very clearly. So students, if you are fine with that, I am not done with the full question. I need to go to the second consideration, that is consideration of non-financial factors also. So I'll write down the next one as well. The consideration of the non-financial factors can be as follows. The management has decided 40 hotels, but there are no evidences on what hotels are they effectively planning to lease. This can have a serious issue on the quality. This can have a serious issue on what, students? The quality, if I'm not mistaken, since certain hotels may have their own point of attraction, own point of what, students? Attractions. Further, there are chances that some hotels which are demanded may also be leased as well. Therefore, a performance report on 314 hotels are essential for this decision. Since it may help the business to decide on what hotels needs to be leased out. Therefore, there will be less regrets later. So students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are fine with this, students? Any questions there you can ask me, but if you are fine with this explanation, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students? I believe it is very clear for you all at the moment because they have only mentioned 40 hotels, but you have to ask the question properly. So that is one more thing. So students, the next one, if I'm not mistaken, quality of the hotels after the lease. Now students, that is another factor to be considered as well. Since the lease is taking for a period of 4 years, there needs to be some standards in the lease contract where the lessee cannot do major modification. Since in the application point of view, this is where the company needs to ensure that they have the full understanding on sustaining the quality of the assets. Therefore, this is a very critical non-financial factor to be considered. Therefore, please be kind enough to set up some standards for penalties or deposits as well. So this is one factor that is also done. Now, students, the next one, if I'm not mistaken, is the quality, the 4 years. So I'll just write down one more non-financial factor because this I have combined. I'll write down here. Another factor to be considered can be, can our tourist be provided accommodations in the hotels where we are leasing out? Example, the competitors cannot rent out our hotels and provide services for their tourists. Therefore, this is a major factor to be considered. Since in case if we don't satisfy the demand of our tourists, there are chances we may lose the business value we created. Full stop. Students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students, if you are fine with this? Any questions you have, you can ask me. But students, these are not restricted to these, but you have to ensure that you are very strong in thinking specifically to our business. Now, students, let's come to the app development question, which is the part B. So I'm going to write down the part B. This area focus on the app development cost for our business. Since mobile apps are becoming very popular, specifically for online travel bookings and hotel bookings, rather than a website, it is vital to have an own app to sustain the market demand. Therefore, in the business point of view, the biggest challenge in the accounting perspective will be how to record the cost of the app. Is it a revenue cost that is charged to the profit or loss account? Or is it a capital cost, which is capitalized as non-current asset in the statement of financial position. Students understand it very, very well. Now, you observe it properly. Technical jargons are used here. Because students, don't worry, you can do very well in the examination, but understand the structuring very, very well. Technical jargons are effectively used here. I believe it is practically clear for everyone here. Now, students, if I am not mistaken, I'm just moving forward so that it will give you a better understanding and an application as well. IAS 38, intangible assets, sets out guidance on recognizing intangible assets in the financial statements. Intangible assets in the financial statements. Therefore, generally, the cost incurred in the initial stages till the app is able to function will be recorded as a capital expenditure and recorded in the statement of financial position. Recorded in the statement of what, students? Financial position. I believe it is very, very clear for you all at the moment. So I'm going to continue this explanation more and practically in detail. Therefore, I'm going to move forward. Therefore, in the case of Happywell, the initial cost they pay to the web developers and the time taken and charged by the web developers for testing the apps and making sure the functions are fine in the initial stages needs to be accounted as capital expense. Full stop. Students, are you clear with this? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? If you are clear with these explanations, can I get a confirmation from you in the chat box? If you are clear with this explanation, students, of this IAS 38 guidance, that is all the cost incurred until the asset is ready for working condition should be treated as capital cost. I believe that is very, very, very clear for the students at the moment. So I'm going to write down here, subsequently, the cost that are incurred can be maintenance cost. Since in the app, there can be bugs. There can be bugs which may make the app slower. Therefore, the service providers provide a maintenance. These costs needs to be treated as a revenue, students? Expense. These costs needs to be treated as revenue expense. That's what, more than 1 year, how I'm going to treat that is the next one, maintenance. Because after the first year, it is going to be maintenance cost, which will be effectively treated as a revenue expense. Revenue expense and charged to the statement of profit or loss. Charged to the statement of profit or loss. Students, I believe this is one side of that point of view only. Further, the apps may have an estimated useful life. Since the apps may need to have an amortization. Amortization means it's like depreciation for a intangible asset. Amortization on a systematic basis. On what basis, students? Systematic basis. Therefore, this will enhance the value of this will have the correct value in the financial statements. In the financial statements. That is one more thing. And I'm going to write down one more point also. There are chances where the apps can be upgraded with new features which may enhance the useful life. Therefore, a specific consideration needs to be provided for these costs, and these items are effectively considered as capital expenses, since this enhances the life of the app. Therefore, these are the accounting treatment that Happywell needs to ensure. Students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students, if you got the understanding of these answers? Are you clear with that, student? Yes, Mr. Jose.
If development cost start more than 1 year, I mean, before it is recognizing intangible asset, the first year cost will be capitalized, so we can capitalize anyhow, or we have to write off with the profit and loss.
Good question. So if you observe development cost, you have to determine the potential of that development. So there are 5 conditions. The asset is ready for use. There are 5 conditions for a development cost.
The span is 2 different years. The first year cost will be considered how?
That's what I'm explaining. So firstly, even if it is on the initial stages, you have to ensure whether the development cost has a potential to become an invention or an innovation. So 5 conditions are there. The 5 conditions are: the assets are there for the use, it becomes an economic benefit, technically feasible, the resources are there to complete the asset. If there is a potential, then the development cost will be capitalized into the statement of financial position. But in case if the 5 conditions are not satisfied, then it will be considered as an expense. Observe it very clearly. You have to always ensure a development cost before it transforms into an intangible asset, the potential, whether it can end up as an intangible asset. Is that fine, Mr. Jose? Did you get that point of view?
If we start a development now, and we can confirm that the next year only it is an intangible asset. So this year cost.
And if you, this year, that's what you're saying. The potential. Potential means what can happen in the future. Are you clear with that verb potential?
But it will be confirmed only next year.
No problem. But if you want, even if it is next year, still you have to work, right? For the next year, you can't stop it, right? If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Jus.
So from the beginning,
Vaccine, you are going to develop a vaccine in 2 years' time, future, still the work must go ahead. So
sure.
if the vaccine has a potential of getting done in 2 years' time or 5 years' time, where that 5 conditions are satisfied, then it can be recorded, that 5 conditions. If that 5 conditions are not satisfied, it is impossible. Is that fine, Mr. Jus?
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you. So thank you very much for asking the question. So I will go for the one-to-one discussion with the students. Miss Gugu, any questions for the day? Miss King, any questions for the day? Thank you.
No, thanks, I'm covered.
Thank you. Mr. Kin, any questions for the day?
No, at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Malaba, any questions for the day? Mr. Malaba, sorry.
No, sir, I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tahir, any questions for the day? Miss Sigvalisi, any questions for the day?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So students, don't worry. Let's focus on the initial stages like this. And this Saturday, I will give you the first mock assignment for you all. So allocate 45 minutes time from this Saturday onwards. Your mock assignments will be starting. And also students, I will give you some more recorded sessions on the theory areas. So you can watch it on demand anytime you like. So students, thanks a lot for your wonderful cooperation for today. I will effectively meet you on the next class, which will be on the Thursday. Take care, students. Have a wonderful evening.